Hello, good people. Gonna make baked squash tonight, and I'm gonna fill it with rice and meat. And first, I'll bake this until it's soft, and then I'll use the shell as the container for the kind of like a stuffed peppers, but you don't eat the very outer shell, which will be like paper by the time this whole thing cooks. This will take a long while. That's why I'm putting it in quite early. Yeah, that's it. Gonna make baked butternut squash tonight. So these are ready to pop in the oven. And they're just a little buttered with a little grass-fed butter and a little bit of drizzled with a little bit of local raw honey. And that's it. I'll bake this for about probably an hour and a half. And a quick tip for those of you that have never cooked this before. It's very hard to cut like the stem. You cut the stem off, then you cut it in half. And for people that have a microwave, if you put it in the microwave for 30 seconds or 1 minute, it's much, much easier. We don't have a microwave, so yeah, I just have to tough it out. And the thing about that is, if the squash is younger, like it hasn't been sitting in your basement way or whatever for a long time, it's much easier to cut. As they sit in, awaiting cooking, the shell gets harder. That's why they call it hard shell squash. It's a very long keeper. You can grow them and they'll keep in cool, like a cool cellar, which is where we keep them, over almost the whole winter, I would say, and just use them down slowly. But the shells do get harder and they get harder to cut. And when we get it like that, I just make Mike do it. Ha ha. I believe, whoops, this is ready. Looks like it was a pretty juicy piece of squash. So I'm gonna let this cool for a little while, then this will scoop right out. It'll be real soft, you see. But you have to wait for it to cool down. It's a little hard to handle right now. I am going to make a very simple bread loaf tonight to go with the stuffed squash. So you just take hot water. Here I took about 1 cup of hot water. Then I have 1 package of dry active yeast. The water cannot be over 130 degrees or else it kills the yeast. And I'm just so used to it, I didn't take any temperature here because I just know. So once you do that and you get the yeast in there, I always add like 1 to 2 tablespoons of sugar, raw sugar. We use organic sugar because the yeast feeds off of that and it makes it much active much faster. I'm just eyeballing this because I'm doing it with one hand. So I'm just doing like a little bit of sugar and then I'll mix it well. I lost you there. I'm just going to mix this well and I'm going to put it in a, you can see my camera fogged up because the water is warm. Just going to put it in a warm area for about 20 minutes. Okay, so I'm browning my meat and you can see here I have 3 different kinds of meat. This is turkey, ground turkey. That's ground beef. And this is ground venison. And I'm going to brown it. I won't use all this. This is a lot of meat. I'll use probably 2 to 3 cups of ground meat mixed with rice and leeks and mushrooms. And the rest of it I will reserve for our dog and mix it in his food. Dog food is so expensive now. It's ridiculous. We feed from dog food and it's up to $4 a can. I cannot even believe that. So often I'll find like meat on closeout close to code and it's half price. And I'll buy that and it's much cheaper than feeding him the canned dog food and he loves it. But of course, again, you have to make the effort of cooking it for him because he's not a real hip on raw food. So everything is just about ready to be put together. Here's what I took out for our buddy. I hollowed out, these are the shells, and there's about a 1/4 inch of meat left in there, otherwise this would just collapse. There's the squash. Here's the meat filling, and I'm just letting it brown a bit with some leeks. You can use onion or whatever you want, shallots, whatever. We had, for those of you just coming, we had a lot of leeks in our garden this year, so we had plenty of leeks for the rest of winter. And then here's my rice. My rice is ready. It has mushrooms and, again, more leeks and seasoning. And that's it. I'm going to mix it all together, the rice, the meat, and the squash, and I'm going to pack it in here with some butter, and then we're going to bake it for a short period of time. It won't need much baking because everything is cooked. Just want to heat it up and let all the flavors, you know, meld together. Just going to peek here and see how my yeast is doing. And so we can see here, it's nice and foamy. You see that foam on top, and you can also smell it. So it's ready to have the flour and salt and whatever else you're going to mix in. I think for this I'm going to put some fresh rosemary and flour, of course, salt, and probably some olive oil, and maybe some garlic. I'm letting the squash mixture cool off a little bit so I can handle it, and I'm going to just put together the bread. And I just wanted to do some pointers here, and one is when you're activating your yeast, you never add the salt. Remember, I put the sugar to move it along faster, so now I'm going to put a little olive oil. And you'll notice I'm going to put some salt now, and it'll kind of like sort of make the yeast go down a little bit, which is fine. We already have it active. That. And then the last thing I'm going to do right now is I'm going to put a nice amount of rosemary. That's rosemary that we grew. And just mix it up a little. Then I'm going to add my flour. You see how foamy it is. You know that it's working. What's supposed to happen is happening. Get my flour. Okay, so here we are. I'm probably going to add maybe 2½ cups of flour. And I use King Arthur organic flour. You know, flour is funny. When they spray weed in the field, there's no rinsing that off. You know, when you're not buying organic, say like bananas, bananas have a peel that you peel off, and of course it's not perfect, but it's much better than just eating flour that is toxic, is what I'm going to say. So I'm going to get this enough flour in here to make a stiffer dough. And then I'll give you a look at it before I put it into raise. So this is the dough out on just my little cutting board. And, you know, I'll work this. It will be short, like, I don't know, 5-10 minutes. It'll become like elastic and sort of shiny. And I'll show it to you when it goes in the pan. I'm just going to make it into a round boule, meaning a boule is a round loaf. I'll put it in a round pan. And then, you know, we'll just let it raise, which will be, I don't know how long. It'll puff up above the top of the pan, and then we'll put it in to bake. So this is what the boule looks like before it sits to raise. And you know, I kneaded it and rolled it into a ball, kneaded it until it was smooth and kind of satiny and elastic. And it looks very greasy here because I greased the bowl with olive oil, then I dropped it in upside down, and then I flipped it over. So all sides are covered with oil. Then I cut a pattern in the top, and you see I tucked some garlic, baked garlic cloves, and sprinkled it with rosemary leaves, fresh rosemary leaves, and crunchy salt, kosher salt. So now it'll raise for probably, I'm going to say 45 minutes. I'm not exactly sure, but I will give you a peek at it before I put it in the oven. So here is what the squash looks like before the oven. It's garnished with a little bit of butter and fresh parsley, and now I'm going to put it in to bake for probably, I don't know, 30 minutes or a little bit more. I usually use my eye to figure out when it's ready, and I think probably by now you guys can understand my style. I don't measure much, and I don't really do a set timer. I look at it and see, is it ready? So we'll take a peek in a little while. So my squash is done, and I'm going to take a peek at this. Is the bread. It's a little bit sticking. It's okay. There it is. Here we go. That's what it looks like, all puffed up. You can see it's like just a little bit over the edge, and that will certainly puff up even more while it's baking. Popping it in very carefully because you can knock down the rays. Okay, this is it. It is ready. It's pretty hot. So I have to do it like that. There it is. It maybe could have risen a little higher, but we're for sure gonna gobble it down as is. It's a little bit above the bowl. That's about it. Let's take a final walkthrough. There's the grand finale. There's the squash, salad. There's the other one. Here's the bread. You see it's kind of rounded like a bowl. And just to go over the bread ingredients, it was about 1 1/4 cup of flour, 1 1/4 cups of water with 1 package of yeast and 1 to 2 tablespoons of sugar, then 2 cups of water, flour, and then you use another 1/2 cup rolling it out and kneading it. Keep adding it to the board till it's nice and smooth. Then it was 5 or 6 garlic cloves, a teaspoon of salt, about 1 tablespoon of rosemary, and then it rose till it was a little bit above the bowl, and it baked for about 27 minutes. And that is what it looks like on the inside. Okay, folks, bon appetit, and be your greatest self. That's all for now. Good night.